Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for joining the first joint webinar between the CulturalRoad and the Diversify-CCAM projects on why inclusive automated mobility matters for Europe. As you will see, this is an important topic for both our projects, as we are both working on ensuring that automated mobility systems work for everyone, and you will hear more today about our approach towards this. But first, let me introduce myself and the speakers for today. So my name is Céline Lefort. I'm Senior Communications Officer at Ertico ITS Europe, and I'm very happy to be moderating today's webinar. We have today 3 speakers. So first, we will hear from Sergio Fernandez, Head of Office at the CCAM Association. Then we will hear from my colleague Miranda Quijano Monzon, who is project support manager, at Ertico. And then we have Anna Anund, research director at the Swedish National Road and Transport Research Institute. So the agenda for today, we'll first hear a keynote speech on why inclusivity matters in automated mobility and the importance of community engagement. Then we will hear from CulturalRoad and our methodology and approach, and then from the Diversify-CCAM project. And we will have at the end the occasion to have a Q&A with you. So please, if you have any questions, use the Q&A section on Teams, which you can find a button on top of your screen. Put your questions there, and then we will collect them and address them at the end. And one final note before we start is that I would like to inform you that the webinar is being recorded. So the recording and the presentation will be made available on our websites after the webinar. So you can come back to it in case you would like to hear more. And I think with this, we can start with our first presentation. So let me share my screen. So Sergio, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to join you today. So as the head of the CCAM Association, I work closely with industry, and as you can see in the next slide there. So about the CCAM partnership. So I work closely with industry, research, and probably it's also better to go to the next slide. Yes. So overall, as I was mentioning, as head of the CCAM Association, I really work closely with industry, research organization, and public authorities across Europe to support the development of connected, cooperative, and automated mobility. Today, I would like to focus, and I think it's pretty much accurate given the topic of today's webinar, on one dimension that we believe are absolutely critical to the success of this transformation, and that's inclusivity. So here on this slide, it's a bit the different clusters that we have at the CCAM Association, and also the projects that are related to this. And as you can see, CulturalRoad and Diversify-CCAM are part of our cluster 6, which address societal aspects and user needs. Next slide, please. When we speak about automated mobility, we often focus on technology. So automation levels, artificial intelligence, or connectivity. But in reality, what we are witnessing is a bit much broader. It's a real societal transformation, and mobility is just not about moving from A to B. It's about access to jobs, to education, and to healthcare, and to social life. And this means that automated mobility will shape not only how we travel, but also who gets to participate fully in society. So the key questions then becomes, are we designing this future for everyone? Because if we are not careful, there is a real risk that innovation, despite its best intention, can widen existing gaps. We already see inequalities in mobility today between, for example, urban and rural areas, between people who are already digitally connected and those who are not there yet, between also those who can afford new mobility services and those who cannot. If inclusivity is not embedded from the start, automated mobility could therefore unintentionally reinforce these divides. Next slide. At the same time, I would like to stress that the opportunity is enormous. If developed in the right way, CCAM can significantly improve inclusivity by providing new mobility solutions for elderly people who can no longer drive, by offering greater independence for persons with disabilities, by connected undeserved or remote areas with flexible transport services, and also by reducing transport-related social exclusion. So inclusivity is not only a challenge, it's also one of the strongest value proposition of automotive mobility. But this will not happen automatically. It requires deliberate choices. Next slide, please. So this brings me to my next point. Inclusivity, no, that's the previous slide.
But is that the right one? Sorry.
No, before. So that should be the third slide. Yeah, so again, the slide before. Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. So this brings me to my next point. So inclusivity must be a design principle and not an afterthought. Too often, accessibility or inclusiveness is considered late in the process, but by then it's much harder and more costly to adapt. Instead, we need to really integrate inclusivity across the entire system. So starting from the vehicle design by ensuring accessibility for persons with reduced mobility in HMI, so human machine interfaces, so making systems intuitive for users of all ages and abilities, in data as well, by avoiding bias by using diverse and representative data sets, in service models, ensuring affordability and availability across regions, and most importantly, we need to shift from designing for users to designing with users. This means that we need co-creation processes, but also involving diverse users group early and testing solutions in real life conditions. For those who will see me speaking in a different with different audience, testing is really what we are stating a lot currently within the CCAM Association. So you wouldn't be surprised that I'm also talking about this currently. Because in the end, inclusivity is not only about technical specification, it's really about understanding real life experience. Next slide, please. There is also a very important link between inclusivity and trust. And for automated mobility to succeed, people need to trust the technology. And trust is not built only through performance, it's built through relevance and fairness. And if people feel that systems are not designed for them or that their needs are overlooked, adoption will be limited. Inclusivity therefore becomes a key driver for user acceptance, for public trust, but also and more importantly for market uptake. In other words, it's just not social objective. It is, in my opinion, a prerequisite for success. Next slide. So no, you can stay in the previous slide. So this leads me to the role of community engagement. Because we cannot design inclusive systems in isolation, we need continuous dialogue with citizens. So engaging with communities early allows us to, one, better understand real mobility needs, two, identify concerns and expectations, three, adapt solutions to local context, and therefore, across Europe, we already have a bunch of good examples. So there are some pilot projects in cities and regions. We have some living labs involving citizens, and we also have like some demonstration activities testing real life use cases. So those demonstration activities are still at the early stage, but we are quite confident that they are going to really help in the long run, also involving more citizen and really engaging with communities. So therefore, those initiatives, they are really essential because they turn innovation into a shared process rather than a top-down development. Next slide. So what is the role of the CCAM partnership here? And that's almost the end of my speech here. This is, in my opinion, where the CCAM partnerships plays a key role, because ultimately it's going to provide a unique framework that is going, as I mentioned in my introduction, bringing together the industry, research organization, public authorities, but also the European Commission, since we are talking about a public-private partnership. This collaboration is essential to align, on one end, technological innovation, also policy development, but ultimately, and it's way more interesting for our topic today, societal expectations. Because in the end, inclusivity is closely connected to several of the partnership priorities: user acceptance, social impact, as I did mention in that cluster 6 in my introduction, and also sustainability, because ultimately a system that is not inclusive will not be widely adopted and will not therefore deliver on its full potential. To conclude, in this context, EU-funded projects are particularly important. Projects like CulturalRoad and Diversify-CCAM are really helping us better understand the human and societal dimension of automotive mobility, because they do explore questions that are extremely important, such as how do cultural differences influence perception and acceptance? How can diversity be better integrated into testing and validation? What are the best ways to engage with stakeholders effectively? And importantly, they provide practical tools and recommendations. This is crucial because inclusivity needs to move from principles to implementation. Looking ahead, and I will conclude with this, the next major step is clear. We need to move from pilot projects to deployment at scale. And this is where inclusivity becomes even more critical. Scaling up means ensuring that solutions work across different regions, for different user groups, in different socioeconomic contexts. And this requires strong governance frameworks, close cooperation between public and private actors, and continuous engagement with citizens. And it requires also maintaining a clear focus, ensuring that no one is left behind. And I will conclude on this. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sergio. So as we mentioned, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section on Teams, and we will continue now with Cultural Road. So Miranda, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Celine. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miranda Quijano, and I'm part of the coordination team of Cultural Road project here at ERTICO. And today I will briefly present you Cultural Road, which, in case you don't know, is an Horizon Europe-funded project that spans from 2024 till 2027, and where we focus on integrating diversity into CCAM planning across different cultural and geographical contexts. Can you move to the next slide, please? Okay. So yeah, and what you see here is the consortium behind Cultural Road. So we are 18 partners in total, including 13 full partners and 5 associated partners, spanning academic and research institutes, public authorities, industry actors, transport operators. So generally a really diverse team, which is fitting for this project. Next slide, please. And what we really want to achieve in Cultural Road is to increase the societal benefits and public acceptability of CCAM. Because as Sergio mentioned before, when we talk about autonomous vehicles and CCAM, the focus normally is on technology, how automation works, how system functions, and of course, how safety is ensured. which are, of course, essential aspects, but sometimes what we're missing is like a deeper reflection on how these technologies can actually serve people and respond to real mobility needs. So it's crucial to consider in this process geographical, cultural, and socio-demographic diversity, because a solution that is developed and tested in one country or region may not be directly transferable elsewhere. And without this approach or adaptation, we risk designing systems that do not fit different contexts or communities. And this is exactly the gap that our projects are aiming to address. So therefore, our main objective is to leverage participatory planning to make CCAM deployment more equitable. And in this process, we actively engage with communities and stakeholders from different backgrounds and geographies to better understand their mobility needs and expectations. And also, we are developing practical guidelines and toolkits that others can use beyond the project lifetime, and which ultimately we aim that they aim to support the development of CCAM services that are sustainable and widely accepted. Next. Okay, so to summarize what we are doing, we have an overall approach within the project. So on the left, you can see our 5-pointed rated star system, which aims to produce a score that measures mobility equity of CCAM solutions across different countries and contexts. And using both existing and newly collected data, the system helps to evaluate a given deployment across 5 pillars of equity, which are safety, inclusivity, user acceptance, network readiness, and psychological factors, all critical dimensions for assessing this effectiveness and societal readiness of CCAM services. And the purpose of the system is not to judge whether something is good or bad, but to enable comparison and to identify gaps, so to help regions and providers understand where they stand and what could be improved. And then on the right side is our 2-step participatory co-creation framework that aims to identify stakeholders' needs and incorporate them into deployment plans so that they are understood and accepted by all parties involved. And the idea behind this 2-step framework is that before you deploy any automated mobility service in a city or region, you need to understand 2 main things, which is what the system needs to achieve from a policy and planning perspective, but also what the people who will actually use this service need in their daily lives. And these are different conversations that require different participants, and that's why we have 2 steps. So the first step is that we bring stakeholders who shape the system, so like public authorities, transport operators, urban planners, associations, and we run a structured workshop to map out the landscape and understand the priorities, the barriers, the opportunities. And crucially, this also leads us to identify the citizens or the groups that are more likely to be affected by a given deployment. And then on step 2, we go to the focus group sessions with these specific communities and end users like elderly people, people with disabilities, commuters from rural areas, tourists, whoever is more relevant to the context. And we run focus group sessions with them to make sure their needs and their concerns are also integrated into these deployment plans. So the idea is that these 2 levels fit into each other, and that is not just one consultation, but that these insights from citizens, for example, go back to the planners, and the process can repeat as much as needed to have an agreement. Next, please. And another important thing I wanted to highlight is that these methodologies or these approaches, we are not testing them only in theory, but we are actually implementing them in 5 demonstration sites across Europe. So as you can see here, Barcelona, West Midlands, and Oxfordshire, Karlsruhe, Ljubljana, and Eilat. And these sites were specifically chosen to be as different as possible from each other, so different language, different urban densities, different political and transport systems, because the point is that we want to test that our methodology can be applied across diverse communities. Next, please. And yes, just to finalize, and maybe what I want to point out is what is more relevant for you attending this webinar is the outputs of Cultural Road. So what will come out of all this? And by the end of the project, we aim to deliver a toolkit of recommendations and best practices. So practical guidance for public authorities, technology companies, transport operators on how to plan and deploy CCAM in an equitable way, including how to use this 5-pointed star system in their own context. So both it will include how to use this system in a comparative scan, but also how to use the full methodology. As well, we aim to deliver a deployment roadmap, so like a strategic framework for equitable rollout of CCAM in local, regional, and European level. And finally, materials and trainings, tools that will be made available through platforms like CCAM Knowledge Base. Because the goal is that even though this is a research project, we would like that our work goes beyond it and that we create these tools that are available for anyone working on automated mobility in Europe. And yeah, I'll stop here. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Miranda. Now we can move to the Diversify-CCAM presentation. Anna, whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you so much. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Arnund, and I work at VTI. So you can take the next step, the next page. Sorry. Yeah. So I work as a coordinator of the Diversify-CCAM project, and I'm the coordinator, and my friend Stella Nicolau is acting as scientific manager. This is a sister project to CulturalRoad. So to some degree, we are targeting the same things because it's the same call. We have in total 15 partners, and we are running for 3 years, and we started in June 2024. That means that we are now in month 23. And on the map, you can see the countries and the partners involved. And so next, please. So what is then the vision and the aim? I mean, for Diversify is really to develop methods and tools that support CCAM developers, transportation planners, and policymakers to integrate social diversity in the design and implementation of future shared autonomous mobility. So I really would like to underline that it targets developers, transportation planners, and policymakers. However, it relies really on travelers' needs, wishes, and identification of barriers to actually use this in the future. Diversify aims to, of course, expand the knowledge, and that is especially on this, of course, CCAM social acceptance and willingness to use, and it's really by looking into the culture, geographical, and policy aspects. And we will do this together with the input from sites, so like actually 12 places around Europe in totally 6 countries. So that is very, helpful for us to really have this like inclusive perspective, both from target users, different people living in those areas, and the people that is planning and doing the policies in these areas. The next one. So the ambition is really to deepen our understanding of the diverse social contexts with a focus on acceptance, adaptation, and utilization of CCAM within the European mobility ecosystem, and also to identify the solutions to really overcome challenges and barriers. So you can take the next one. So we have 5 strategic objectives, and they are all to some degree built around this lovely purple diamond. Knowledge about different factors in the work to plan and to have like a good uptake of CCAM solutions is really relying on not only what we know about infrastructure, social, business, methodology, and operational factors. We also need to integrate geographical and culture and policy factors. And in the project, we're doing this through a really deep benchmarking and literature survey, but also on data collections among users to identify indexes that works both from a theoretical point of view, and then it's operationalized with real data on. So in the project, we have indexes covering geographical factors, culture factors, and policy factors, but also their combination and the combination with existing factors to make sure that the planners can have a better tool to really consider inclusiveness. We will develop in the project one planning tool that we call the D tool. We will also develop observatories, of course, and a handbook that could be used. But it's really the end product is addressing the planning based on input on how it is for people living out there. So how did we do this? You can take the next one. So I have decided to focus on the three main questions for this workshop. So first of all, you might ask why inclusion is a key factor in this work. And here I would like to say that one thing that we really need to understand is that one size do not fit all. We need to maybe change the perspective and think that it's not like one size fits all. It's really the opposite. It do not. We need to, I mean, even though we are humans, we have the same like way of thinking maybe, but we also live in different type of environments. We speak different languages. We visit places for different reasons, but we also have pros and cons coming with different roles. So for us, it has been, when it comes to this question, why it's a key factor in relation to the successful deployment of automated mobility, it's really important to understand the traveler's perspective on what is the barrier for them if we would like to add in shared CCAM solutions, because that is the key for it. So we have decided to focus both on the reason for being in areas in those 12 pilot sites, but also specific individual factors. So what we have is like a good understanding now about residents, commuters and workers, visitors, tourists, but also for all of them, specific things like if you're a student, if you're a child or young person, if you're elderly, if you're even a migrant or a refugee or a person with special needs. So all of this is like target in our data collection to really get a better understanding, and the knowledge, thanks to, for example, a big survey with 6,000 answers, is integrated in the indexes that we create. So as you can see in this like small table to the right, in all of the sites, we focus on different target groups and different reasons for traveling in and out to an area. So yeah, that's one perspective. And the next one, yeah, and that is about how different regions and communities experience how they experience mobility differently. So I'm very happy to say that our D tool, that you now see the almost ready version for the second iteration, is really dealing with this. So thanks to all the 12 pilot sites and for all the data collections on users, I mean the travelers, but also the perspective on the stakeholders, we have been able to identify then those indexes that I talked about. Now in the bottom you can see the culture factors affecting, that is like one index, one is for geographical and one is for policy. And behind each of them you have, I mean, sub indexes, you can say, but now you just see the main things. But what is obviously when you have a good conceptual model with a good theory behind, also collecting data and trying to understand the differences, you can see that even though everyone is like human, but it really comes out in a different way between those regions and communities. And just by doing this in a structured way, we can see that there are different needs and different maturiness, so to say, in different areas, covering all these aspects that we have mentioned. There is also a diversified mobility equity index that is like a combination of the indexes that gives this like really level of awareness in general. So in Diversify-CCAM, we try to deal with different regions and communities experience by adding in the theory and then add on the operationalization of it through data from the sites. And then you can take the next one. Yeah. And then the third question is how participatory approaches can support better planning and decision making. I mean, that is really the heart of the Diversify product. So I think it's important to have in mind that we need both the stakeholders that we are developing a tool for or a handbook for or the observatory for, that they need to be involved from the beginning. And for us, it's the planners, policymakers, and developers. But we also need to involve the target users because their wishes, needs, and view of barriers needs to be integrated in the development of the tool. And that is how it's done through the indexes. So simply said. So in Diversify, we start with the baseline data collection, and that involves both the end users, or like the target users. It's like a lot of surveys, 6,000 surveys that has been out, and we have received input. But we also do it through workshops with stakeholders representing the three groups. And based on that, we understand their needs, how they work, how they think in different regions. All this information is then forwarded into into the developers' work, so to say. So they have created the first mock-up. And that mock-up is then again shown and tried out by our planners and policymakers especially, to get the first feedback so they can actually add in, they can revise, they can comment and guide us. And right now, this is also happening in all the sites. So it's not just like a small group or like once, it's really at all the 12 local sites repeatedly done. And right now, all this information for the first iteration is integrated into this D tool in this case. And now we have the second version of really a functional D tool using data that is now ready to be iterated a second time with, again, planners and policymakers. And based on this data coming from all the 12 sites, we will have a final version of the tool. So I would like to say that this participatory approach, by integrating all the people already from the baseline, really understand the needs and to have them in the process, is really the heart of the product. And otherwise, we would not be able to really do this because, as you saw before, different countries, different municipalities, even in a country, have different perspectives and tasks that is demanding if they would like to move toward shared CCAM solutions in order to have a good uptake. So I think you can take the next one, and I would like to say thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you as well to Sergio again and Miranda for their presentations. Now we have some time for a Q&A. I think for the moment we don't have any questions from the audience. If you would like to ask anything to our speakers, please, now is your chance to write something in the Q&A section and we can take those questions. And in the meantime, when I leave you some time to do that, I would like to ask then a first questions to our speakers. So in your own perspectives, how can we ensure that inclusivity is not treated as an add-on, but is truly embedded in the development of automated mobility systems in Europe? Maybe, Sergio, you can start?
Yes, of course. For me, the key is to integrate inclusivity from the very beginning. So both in design and governance. That means setting clear requirements in EU programs and projects. Also ensuring diverse user groups are involved early, and aligning industry and policymakers around shared objectives. In addition, I think that inclusivity also needs to be reflected in KPIs and funding criteria, because what gets measured and incentivized gets delivered. Ultimately, it's about, I would say, about a shift the mindset. So inclusivity is not a constraint, but a condition for a successful deployment.
Thank you, Sergio. Anna, Miranda, would you like to add anything?
No, I think that said you really gave a good answer on this one. I think it's also important, maybe that's an add-on, to have a holistic perspective. So we're not only focusing on one thing. So it's really like the system of systems. We are not stuck into one type of CCM solution. So it's really covering the holistic perspective, because like an automated vehicle comes with a lot of other things. It comes with a type of service in a specific infrastructure. And so all this like is important to have in mind.
Thank you. Miranda, would you like to add something?
Well, I think it's a lot said, but maybe from our perspective also to highlight that it's also important to move from consultation of stakeholders, but also to co-creation with them and doing it early, like how we do in a Cultural Road. Like, we don't ask communities of what they think of the plan that already exists, but we try to involve them from before the plan is written, so that they also help to define what is actually equitable deployment and inclusive deployment in their context. And this is also how our approach of the two-step co-creation project and the 5-pointed star system will help, hopefully, planners in this.
Indeed. I see now that we have some more questions from our audience in the chat. So I'm checking that now. So first question is for you, Anna. So on table slide 7, can you explain why tourists are not considered in a highly visited city like Barcelona?
I mean, the table that you show is that I showed to you is the main target group, so to say. Of course, you have a lot of tourists in Barcelona, but when we're really deepening the understanding through, I mean, interviews and workshops, the selection was not on tourists, it was on the other groups. So it's just the main target things. You also have the other ones, of course, but we cannot say that the main is everywhere, because then we lose the diversity perspective. So yeah, it's from practical reasons. Of course, they are important.
Indeed. Then another question we had. So we know by now how important stakeholder engagement, inclusivity, diversity are. What are some clear methodologies and methods that could be adapted in CCAM in this sense? I don't know who that is targeting exactly, but feel free, who would like to answer that. No one?
Yeah. I mean, I can try to answer to that, but I don't know how much time do you have, because it's
a big
such
question.
it's a very broad question there. But I will say that in terms of methodologies and methods, what I can think of, it's also something that I did mention, about the living labs, so that you do have that user-driven innovation. That's one of the things that I can think of, because those living labs, they really also will be able to set up a difference between urban and rural communities. You can involve the elderly users, you can involve persons with disabilities, you can take into also account what I did mention in my speech, so low income and digitally excluded people. So that's at least at first what comes to my mind, to try to answer to that question and to try to stay brief with it.
Maybe I can also comment, not so much from diversify perspective, but from running a pilot site in Linköping called Ride the Future. What we can see is also the need for having the operation running for a longer time, because it takes time. It's like when you have a new bus line, it takes 2 years before people trust it and start to use it. And I think that is also very, very important, especially for groups that have maybe special needs or like certain needs. So it's important to have really like methods that are more lasting, so to say, than a couple of months, because it takes time and you need to be able to try and trust what is out there. So if we have like large scales, it's also needs to be large or like long time. Okay, yeah, that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you both for your answers, and I hope that answers your questions. Another one we have for you, Anna, is did you assess the impact of costs towards the mobility decision of these user groups? And are you able to share a link to your survey results?
Did you say cost?
Yes, the impact
Yes.
of costs towards the mobility decision of the user groups.
So, I mean, when it comes to the impact, where of course business part is a part of it, that will be handled in another work package that has not yet started. We have the framework, and we will be able to share data. Right now, it's not public, but it will be public in one of the data portals on the EU side. So we will absolutely be able to share the data. So please send me a specific email and I will make sure you get data.
Thank you, Anna.
And in general, of course, cost is, sorry, for a specific user, of course, I mean, someone in the end of the day needs to pay for this, and everything that is around the business about it, who's going to pay for this, is an area that I think is the next step in all this work, because I mean, still we know that not even robot taxi solutions in the US is still a business. It's really still something that is not running by itself. So of course this needs to come and needs to be dealt with. From a user perspective, it's difficult to really say how much you're ready or like willing to pay because you have not experienced it in fully. So that is a bit tricky, but it will come, I'm sure.
Thank you, Anna. And then I see we had another question in the chat. What is your idea and plan to build a European autonomous driving system in terms of vehicles, hardware, software, and AD stack to prevent to lose the market to the US or Chinese companies, which we see now in Europe? I don't know if anyone would like to comment on that.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that also. Sergio, please start. Yeah.
No, you can go ahead. I will follow up, Anna. No problem.
I hope we have the same view. So yeah, I mean, we really need something, a European automated solution. I would like to say that I prefer some sort of shared solution. I mean, a small bus or maybe a mid-sized bus, because we need to have this in control in Europe. So that is something that I really, really would like to encourage for.
So to complement what just Anna said, and I'm seeing also that the question is linked to the STOA study that was presented yesterday. I mean, it's clearly critical to try to develop, let's say, a European solution when it comes to CCAM. Especially if we look, let's say, more broadly at the geopolitical context that we have currently in Europe. So clearly there is a risk otherwise to be at geopardy and that dependent from other regions in the world. But at the same time, there are some, let's say some rational and also some pragmatism to have, because clearly, and I will just take the example of the AD software stack. Currently, we mainly only have one solution. It's a Chinese one from Momenta. NVIDIA announced that they want to join the race, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they mentioned that they will invest 80 billion euros on the project. So on one end, I fully understand, I fully share that we need to develop a European solution for AD deployment, but at the same time, are we sure that we are able to actually activate and lever the the money that will be necessary if we want to have those European solutions in the future. So that's just a question that I will. So I will answer to your question with a question on my side. So clearly, from let's say a technological sovereignty perspective, it should be a must. But it's not only by putting out statements and by saying that we want to do it that we will be able to do it. And more importantly, I think the question is that what do we want on the road? Do we want European full European AD cars on the road, or do we want European cars on the road in the future? Because also currently, let's say, car manufacturers, they are also present in those regions that you are mentioning, and they are collaborating with actors in that field, mostly because or they are maybe more advanced in certain technological areas, or just because it's easier to collaborate with them.
Can I add on one comment? I agree with you, but still the fact is, like, if you're setting up a large scale project or even a small project in Europe, we are very restricted to what we can bring in or like buy. So there is a risk that if we are not able to buy from, I don't know, some specific countries, we will not be able to really move on and learn things to have this. So it's also difficult. I mean, we need to find a solution for this.
Yeah, just to answer you, Anna, but I agree with you. I mean, for example, there is I'm Brussels based, and for those of you who are in Brussels, you are probably aware that there is an autonomous shuttle that is actually running in Leuven, so not that far from Brussels, but it's a Chinese material, because currently the only available material to do such let's say small pilots demonstration projects are coming from different regions of the globe. So I do totally agree that ultimately it's also important to let's say to have those let's say those things and those projects to run the things. I'm also thinking about at something that wasn't. I mean, it's not a debate today and here in this webinar, but data is critical when we are talking about autonomous driving. And we could also think about a solution that will ensure that the data that is produced in Europe stays in Europe. So even if it's coming from, let's say, a Chinese OEM or a US-based technology platform providing the services, that that data is staying in Europe, can be used by our own companies, by our own research institutes to also improve models, HMI, and those things. So it's also, let's say, legislation can also be a key there, a driver there to what we ultimately want to achieve.
Thank you, Sergio and Anna, for your answers to that very interesting question. As we're now running a bit over time, I would like to conclude this webinar. First, I just wanted to let you know about two events that we have coming up. If you are going to the ITS European Congress in Istanbul next week, Diversify-CCAM and CulturalRoad are organizing a joint training session on diversity and inclusion for future automated public transport services. So if you are joining us at the Congress, please join us for that very interesting training session where we provide you practical guidance and tools. And also in May, CulturalRoad will organize a second webinar where we will dive a bit deeper into our co-creation methodology and how we apply that in our demonstration site. So please already save the date. It will be on the 13th of May from 2 to 3. And with this, I also invite you as well to visit our website if you would like more information about our projects, and make sure to follow us on LinkedIn if you would like to stay informed about our progress and our developments. And with that, I would like to thank you again to our speakers and to everyone for joining us today. And I wish you a very nice afternoon. Thank you.